Hey guys, and welcome back to 16 States of Soccer. We're your hosts, Hunter.
Simon.
And Stefan.
We are actually here watching the Super Cup, so let's go ahead and crack those beers, watch the Super Cup, and get into it.
By the way, I cracked the beer and BVB just cracked the defense of Bayern. They just scored.
Yes, but Bayern is still up 2-1 as of right now. They're actually playing, both teams are actually playing a lot of, I guess you could say, second-tier players, because Sane got a knee injury in his knee capsule. He's thankfully it's not serious. He's only out for this game. And then for BVB, Sancho and Berkey are out with respiratory problems.
But I think even Dortmund can bear if they lose this game, because it's supposed to be just another game. It's supposed to be the title winner from the Bundesliga against the DFB Pokal, so the German Cup winner. But last year Bayern won both, so it's Bayern against the runner-up of the Bundesliga. So it's Bayern against Dortmund. So just a kind of
it's
game.
Really, it means nothing. It's just to create more revenue, but it's still exciting. No matter what it is, to see Bayern versus BVB. That's always a good game. All right, hey, so today's episode, what we want to go over while watching the Super Cup is match day 2 for the first and second league. We want to pick out some exciting games from match day 2. And then we want to go into a little bit of the history and culture of Schalke, because some of you might know there's a little crisis going on in Schalke, but we'll get into that later on. So let's start with the Bundesliga match day 2.
Yeah, of course, I would love to start with my home team, HSV. They played against Paderborn, and it was a fucking Monday game. And I think if
in the second league, Monday game in the second league.
Yeah, I think if they get money for every Monday game they play, actually, then or Sunday and Monday game, they would be fucking rich. Nevertheless, it was the second game, and it nearly brought me to my grave. I had like 20 heart attacks. They started with a lead of 2-0, which was so good that I thought, okay, I actually could stop watching because they fucking crushed Paderborn. Yeah, this changed. They trailed 3-2 with just like 3 goals in 4 minutes, and I was, what the fuck? From 2-0 in the lead to trailing 3-2 behind. But nevertheless, they won in the end with 4-3. So this was a really exciting game. Hunter watched it with me, and actually he also was really enthralled by the game. What I wanted to focus on shortly, because last time Simon nagged a little bit, as I said, watch out.
There we go. Already knew you were going to talk about
Lewandowski of the second league. And he was like, yeah, I don't know, Lewandowski of the second league. Maybe he should have proved himself in first. But he had his 121st and his 122nd goal. And no one had more goals since the one-track Bundesliga since 1981. So
I never doubted that he's a good second league scorer, but he just doesn't have the nuts for the first league.
Not yet.
Just a little challenge.
Apparently, obviously. So they tried him.
They
tried him, but now there's a reason why he's playing in the second league, I think.
Okay. Nevertheless, HSV was really happy to have him.
Yeah.
Right? Congrats to HSV.
You recognize something about HSV and how they were set up on the field. Could you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, so it was crazy. I was like, why? We had that moment in the game where I think they scored 2 goals like within like 5 minutes against HSV. Paderborn did. And I was like, I saw the replay and I was like, something's not right here. I was like, are they playing a 2-back? I was like, that is incredibly risky. So I looked into it, and they had a 4-back. So they had 4 in their defensive line, but they were doing what basically Bayern likes to do with Davies and playing the left back and the right back really high up the pitch, like almost at the half line. So they were basically midfielders. That way they can support attacks. And I was like, no wonder Paderborn is getting through so much. You got two guys in the back. Sometimes they're trying to cover 4 or 5 people. That's impossible. 2 people can't cover 4 to 5 people. That's not going to happen. There was even moments in the game that, like I pointed out to you, Simon, where you saw the replays and you saw the left or right back over in midfield. The ball got past them through the middle of the field, and then they had to try to sprint half the field to get back. That's impossible.
Yes.
No matter how fast you are, you can't do it when an attacker is sprinting down the field as well.
They just have an Alfonso Davies, who's fast as hell.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
for these tactics, you have to have the players, and I'm really hoping for Hamburger SV that they have it, and then that they don't get too much struggle with it. But I'm not quite sure at the moment.
Yeah, I really love the team, but it feels like since this season they started also buying more Bundesliga 2 players than Bundesliga 1 players. So it feels like they already have changed their mindset or identity into being a Bundesliga 2 team. Not a Bundesliga 1, but maybe I don't know why they change it for the tactics on the field too. Right. But maybe they will follow.
For the funding portion, you have to realize that the 2 Bundesliga does unfortunately get less funding than the first league. So that's probably why they're buying more quote unquote second league players. But yeah, like I saw that and I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like you
Nah. There definitely were worse things, I think.
I mean, thankfully they won, but it's like you can play that way. Like Simon said, if you have the players that can do it.
Yes, I think Davies a little bit quicker, but Sule is quick as hell as well.
Yeah, they got Davies, Sule, Coleman. They're all super fast dudes. So they can fall back when they need to.
But when you look at the stats, I think HSV have deserved to win it. They had 14 shots on goal and Paderborn only 10. They had more ball possession. They won, but no, Paderborn won more of the duels, I think. But in the end, it was a deserved win for.
Yeah, definitely. Today, I just told everybody, away win, and nobody dared to say but there were 3 goals against HSV in 4 minutes because that's fucking unimportant. Okay, let's go to another team. As much as I love to talk about HSV, maybe stick to Hamburg and talk about St. Pauli, because all of us are also in love with that team since last time.
I think all of you have listened to the interview with our new hero, Robin Himmelmann.
Or at least I hope you have. If you haven't, go back and listen to it because it's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm actually, I don't want to say surprised, but I happily surprised because St. Pauli, they didn't dominate the game, but what they did was took advantage of every single chance they got. As soon as they got the ball, saw an opening, they scored. They played really well, actually. The only issue was between the 78 and 80 minute, I don't know what happened. I guess they got too comfortable because they were up, and they literally just let them score twice within 2 minutes.
Yes.
Heidenheim.
Minute 78 and 80.
Yeah.
So the game was almost over, and there were three goals ahead, and then.
But yeah, with 2 minutes in a soccer game, especially after scoring, everybody's got to reset into the positions, get back to the half mark, and so that's like literally you scored a goal, reset, kicked off, and then within 30 seconds you had it at the goal and scored again. So I think they just got too comfortable. They were just relaxed, and then Heidenheim saw the opening and scored twice.
Yeah, but on the other hand, Heidenheim had way more goal chances and ball possession. I think it was goal chances 10 to 19. And I think we definitely should honor the kickers of St. Pauli because they didn't have too many goal chances, but it seemed like everything was in the net. Was really bewildered because the Sky commentators always said Heidenheim is way better and it's so crazy that St. Pauli's getting all these goals in. But I got the feeling they had real momentum. They had real momentum and were crazy good actually bringing the balls into the net. So I think it wasn't that strange kind of wonder because it felt the same way the last match day.
Let's move on to our next with Nuremberg.
Okay.
But
So
yeah,
Nuremberg won against Sandhausen. They had a home win, which is always a good thing to start the season off. And I don't know how you felt, guys, but I had the feeling that Sandhausen, they appeared like they have no power. Like normally you feel with a team at the end of a season, but it's the beginning of the season. I think it was totally strange. It felt like they don't want to play.
I think that it was only because Nuremberg was too good for them. They outplayed them. It was just a dominant victory of Nuremberg. They had like 27 shots on goal against Sandhausen, and they only scored 1.
yeah, and Sandhausen only had 6.
Yes, so and they had almost 60% ball possession and way better completed pass quote. So I think it was a deserved win. And so Erst FC Nürnberg had 1 draw, 1 win, so 4
Yeah.
points out of 2 games. So they on the road to get promoted, I think, this year.
Yeah, and it actually took them forever to score the goal. It was at the 77-minute mark. So I guess Sandhausen, like you said, either just gave up or their defense got too tired to keep up with the offensive players. But also for Nuremberg, the player who ran the most distance, which is a little surprising to me, was Enrico Valentini, who is their captain, like we said.
Okay.
He ran
And a
11.
defense player.
Oh, yeah, he's a defensive player. So to run 11.1 kilometers in a game as a defensive player, that's a lot. But I also noticed he was playing extremely high during the game, which I
Yes.
like. Which, like we said about Hosval, I like to see if you can handle it.
I think that's the new culture of soccer with the high linebackers and
Yeah.
very, very fast wingers and
Well, German soccer has always been more aggressive and offensive than, like, let's say, Italian soccer. So I think it's just a natural progression in modern age to become more and more aggressive as players get better and better and more professional.
Nuremberg, definitely the better team. I think we can summarize it that way. So it was a well-earned win. Yeah, should we go on to...
Würzburg? Yeah.
So Simon, start off with Würzburg. It's like one of your favorite teams. Do you have a soft spot for the team because you started in that city?
yes, I studied there, and as I mentioned, I have an open heart for Würzburg, and they just got promoted this season, but they are already struggling. They had 2 games and 2 losses, and I'm really, really hoping, but I'm kind of already doubting that they will stay in the second league. But at least if they play against Nuremberg, I'm really, really sure that I will be there. Well, third because it's here in the nearby, so I'm really looking forward for these games, and don't know when they will come back to the second league if they get relegated at the end of the season. So I keep my fingers crossed for Würzburg. And if you look at the stats for this game, they played against Düsseldorf, this major city in the western part of Germany. It was well deserved. Düsseldorf, they ran more, they had more sprints, they won more tacklings.
They had
And
62% of ball possession. 62, that's a huge amount.
And 512 passes versus 253.
yes, so let's see how Würzburg will cope with the HSV, with the Hamburger SV. But if they can win against them, then they might have a chance.
Yeah,
I'm
if you
pretty
win
sure.
against HSV, you can win against anyone.
I'm going to be honest, Simon. I have to agree with you. I'm really happy that Würzburg got promoted because they're kind of a local team to where I am. They're only,
Yes.
an hour away. But man, the way they've been playing at the start of this season, you can just tell that they cannot compete against these second league teams. And that's also something I kind of want to explain to American listeners, because I think when we say second league, they think of the minor leagues in America. And the second leagues in Germany are not like that. It is much better because first and second league teams are very attached. They switch back and forth constantly. So the quality is only like one step lower than like in America would be the NFL. It's just one step lower, a very small step.
Yeah, I think if you compare it to baseball, then actually Bundesliga 1 and Bundesliga 2, I think even most of Bundesliga 2 teams would still be in the MLB, and second half of Bundesliga 2, and then maybe the first half of AAA would be in third league. Third league is still professional, still seen as part of the professional players in Germany. Nevertheless, you definitely get a difference in the skills of second and third league, but first and second, not so much.
So why don't we move on to the first Bundesliga match day 2?
Okay, Bundesliga 1, which isn't too different from Bundesliga 2, how we just learned. Okay.
Stefan, I'll let you start because I know exactly what you want to bring up right away.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, just a small inside joke here, because Freiburg maybe is not the most famous team. Nevertheless, I want to mention that Freiburg played against Wolfsburg, and they had 21 goal chances, 21, and actually ended up with having 1 goal. And I think that is mind-blowing. Right. Also feel a little bit attached to Freiburg because my father lived there a huge chunk of his life. And actually, Simon and me, even, we had tickets for Freiburg against Nuremberg. But on the day, unfortunately, was the funeral of my father. So we didn't go there. And the last Freiburg game was actually the first game I watched again from Freiburg, because I didn't watch for a long time, because it was always connected to the funeral of my dad, in my mind anyway. And I think this is also something because, as Hunter mentioned in the first episode, I think the distances are not too far away and you have chances to go to a lot of games. You definitely always have connections, personal connections to different game days, different teams. What happens on the day that I went to this and that game, this and that stadium, right? So nevertheless, Freiburg, definitely crazy game. Okay, which other important but not as mind-blowing game do we want to cover?
Oh my God. So boy, did I eat my words from our first episode. Oh, this is gonna be a golden age for Bayern. Man, we got dominated by Hoffenheim. But it brings up a lot of problems. Oh my God.
BVB just scored the second goal.
BVB just scored again. Speak of the goddamn devil.
Speaking about golden
So
age
it's a
of
draw
Bayern
right
is
now.
over.
I know.
Legit.
I'm going to start saying the opposite of what I mean on this podcast because everything I say does not happen.
Yeah,
So
that's a bad thing. Normally, when you're drinking with us and just talking shit in front of the TV, nobody will remember what you actually said. So next time you look like a total pro concerning soccer trivia. But now, as everybody has it on tape, you can just, skip back and see what kind of shit you talked.
But yeah, freaking Hoffenheim beat Bayern 4-1. But I think this game brings up a lot of concerns about what I said in the first episode about the exhaustion from these guys going from the restart of the Bundesliga. And Hansi Flick has brought this up as well. You could see in their play because they had the UEFA Super Cup. What was it? It was 3 days before, correct? I watched it.
It
I
was
just
on
can't
Thursday,
remember.
I think. Yes.
Yeah, it was Thursday, and then they played Sunday. And they barely had time to recover. And then on top of that, they've been going the entire time since the restart of the Bundesliga. They were
You always
exhausted.
have to recover from a big, long game.
And that is the problem.
You know, Hunter, that baseball players play 168 games a year.
Yeah,
And
well,
your Magic
oh my
Bayern
God.
can't cope without a
do-
day of rest.
Steph and I will fight you. Do not bring up baseball players. They are fat and they don't run unless they're running the 10 meters to the next base.
Actually, if
We
you
just talked about 11 kilometers.
if you run around the all bases back to home field, it's the same length as a football field.
Yeah,
So shut the fuck up.
Yeah, congratulations.
They
You did it
stopped
once.
At least 3 times. Yes.
That doesn't matter. Okay,
As
back
a
to soccer.
warm up, I think.
No, so yeah, they're exhausted. And Hansi Flick, who is the head coach for Bayern, he has expressed how we don't have enough depth. Bayern's squad, they're awesome players, some of the best in the world, but we don't have anybody that can cover down for them. There's no depth to the squad. So these guys, it's the same starting 11 basically, maybe 2 to 3 variations here and there, playing game after game. And you could see that in Sunday's game. Nabry would miss a goal, and then he would just kind of, he just looked exhausted. Like, he didn't even care that he missed. He was just like, get me off this field.
Yes,
And, they care. There was a picture on Instagram of him after the game. There was nobody else in the stadium, and he's just standing there like he's been there for 30 minutes on the sideline, just staring at the field, trying to figure out what happened.
Hansi Flick and even Thomas Müller were saying that they don't look for excuses, that they don't put everything on the tiring to the fatigue. But I think if they would have had like 7 days between the 2 games, they would never have lost this game.
Well, yeah, I agree.
And actually, Hunter, can we establish that one can only say we in connection to a third league team? Because if you follow guys like that through the whole country, that's like pure devotion, but actually nobody's part of a second
really?
or first league team because
really?
you're not part of a huge ass rich corporation. But on the other hand, I always love it.
No.
when you say we.
Are you
Talking about-
sure? Because last time I checked, I'm a registered fan club member with Bayern. They have me in their registry, so technically I am part of their organization. Just please, Stefan, tell me what part of organization you are with Haasvel.
I'm in the supporters club, part of HSV too, but you never hear me say we, because I'm part of the fans and I'm not part of.
Now, is that with the club, or is that just?
Yeah, actually, I have full
I'm a
voting
fan.
rights.
I'm a fan.
I have full voting rights, Hunter. You are only in a fan club. As
No,
a
you don't.
supporter club, I have full voting rights. You just
No, you
with
don't.
a bunch of drunk ass guys in a bus driving to the games. I can vote on the team stuff.
No, you don't.
So let's go on to the next game.
Let's go on to the next game, guys.
You're a Bavarian traitor.
You actually should be a fan of Nuremberg because you.
And so should you, Stefan.
So should all of us. So if one of us is a traitor, then all of us are traitors.
Okay, that's coming out. That got too personal. We were shitting on each other's fan clubs.
So
This is what we're talking about soccer. Like in the NFL, like you talk shit about each other's teams and everybody laughs about it. But in soccer, it's like, no, dude.
Okay, let's move on to BVB, who struggled this weekend.
Yeah, let's talk about the BVB game. I did not see this one coming. I saw it coming for Bayern, the loss, because they're exhausted. But then BVB loses again. I ate my words from the first episode. 0-2 against Augsburg.
Literally, the phrase which I heard the most was that it was boys against men, and the boys related to the BVB young players who were like 17 or something. But I think if you look at the game, you cannot say that BVB was the worst team. They had like 80% of ball possession. It was like almost Guardiola style. They had 817 passes and 91% of them were completed. They had like 11 shots on goal. So were they literally the better team than Augsburg. But it just lost 2-0.
It's just
It's
another
just
case of a team taking advantage of every opportunity they get. And Augsburg did.
Yes.
Yeah. So sometimes it's not a better team. It's just if you have a better striker here. Right.
Yes.
And did
Ne-
you hear Simon talking about Pep Guardiola? Simon, knowing me as a City fan, just told me yesterday, I think, that he started watching Amazon Prime's Man City documentary, and already he's referring to Pep Guardiola. But now I think he
He
will
was
now
a
say,
Bayern
"No,
coach
he
a
was a
couple of years
Bayern
ago.
coach," and he just
So,
did it.
and before that, he was coach of Barcelona. So I know him besides the
Personally.
besides the documentation.
Right. Okay. Point taken, Simon.
Okay.
So let's move on to the Stuttgart game because Stuttgart just got promoted to the second.
Can you, Hunter, stop? Can you pronounce Stuttgart again?
Stuttgart.
Okay, sounded very good.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Stuttgart.
Yes.
Yes.
So Stuttgart just got promoted to the first league, and they just won their game 4-1 against Mainz, which I think is a really good showing for a team that just got promoted. But there were quite a few fouls in this game. There was
Yes,
2 red cards.
And Mainz wasn't in their best condition. They had really a situation in the club going on because the players, they went on a strike, so they refused to exercise and they refused to follow the coach and the coach's instructions. And that is a situation you don't have very often in a professional team. And from a labor law perspective, it's just a no-go to refuse to work. They are just normal employees, and they have to work, they have to exercise, and they have to play. It's just from a legal perspective, they could send out warning letters, and they, in the next step, they could quit the players. They will never do it, because if they quit the players, if they cancel their contracts, they can go for free, like, because they don't have a contract, and every club can go to them and say, hey, do you want to play for us? And Mainz won't get a penny for the players. So that will never happen. But from a legal perspective, it's just a no-go.
What was the reason for a strike?
Was because of the one striker of them, this Adam Schalke guy, is a very, very high deserved player, and he shot a lot of goals in the past, and he's in the team council, and has a very, very high standing in the team, and the coach refused to let him exercise with him. So, but nevertheless, Adam Schalke showed up. And the coach said, no, you have to go home. You have to exercise by yourself. You have to exercise with the second team. You are not allowed to exercise with the first squad. So, and then the other player said, okay, if he's not allowed to play, then we are not willing to play and to exercise. So they stood up, they stepped up, and as a support for Adam Schalke.
That sounds really cool. That actually supported their teammate. But why did the coach why did the coach not actually use him?
They said for sporting reasons, because he's too old and he won't play a role in the season. So they sent him back to the second team. But I think the striker said, Adam Schalke said, okay, I have a contract with the first league team, and I have the right to exercise in the professional conditions and with the first squad and with the first 11. I have just the right. And yes, and I think the story which is behind this situation is that during the Corona crisis, the club said, like, okay, we are reducing your payment, and the players agreed to it. And but the club promised, like, if the financial situation is getting better, then you will get the money back, the rest of the money which they don't pay during the summer. But in the last weeks, they said, okay, the financial situation is still bad and you won't get the money back. And then was the situation where Adam Schalke stood up and said, no, you said we will get the rest of the money you promised us, which is in the contract. And I think that's the story behind the story. It's not only the sporting reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with them, but they're also multi-million-dollar athletes, so do what you're told.
Yes.
You're making millions.
Employees.
It's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
army guy speaking out of you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do what I'm told.
You're told to do
Yeah.
something, you do it, especially when you're making millions.
Oh man.
Yes, and you have the freedom of speech. You can have Instagram accounts, and you can say, "Hey, club, where's my money?" And you can hire a lawyer and stuff, but just refuse to work. I think, Hunter, if you try that,
I would get an Article
think-
15 and I would be kicked out.
yes, and they will explain it to you in very, very detail. What are you going to do?
So, last match we want to talk about is the Schalke home game against Bremen, because, like we've said, Bremen has been in horrible form. They've been doing really bad over the past, 2-3 seasons, and they're only going further down. So to lose against Bremen 1-3 at home says mountains about the state that your club is in, especially since you've lost every single game so far in the season. Granted, there's only
Yes.
2, but
But they had a streak 18 games or so without a win. So they
Yeah.
tried and played 18 games and were not able to win a single one of them. So they lost on Saturday afternoon, and it was the first thing I checked on Sunday morning was that they were firing David Wagner, and the coach of Schalke 04.
yep, they have fired their head coach, David Wagner.
Actually, did you read about that YouTube gaming star who said he would spend 1,000 euro to a charity if Bremen would win, and afterwards they would fire the coach David Wagner?
No.
It was all over the place. It's just let me look up the name. Gamer Brother. It's like a YouTube star. And he's like a huge Schalke fan. And he said, if they will lose again against Bremen, and then actually you fire this guy, please fire him, and I will give 1,000 euro to charity. And it was like the whole web was, half of it was thinking it's funny and hilarious. The other half thought it's like, no, this is like a headhunt and not cool at all. But in the end, actually, he did it. He spent 1,000 euro to a charity and got his wish granted. So a win-win situation for everyone but the
Yes,
coach.
and I think it's a part of the job description for a soccer coach in the first league.
Yeah. Okay. It was what was definitely a devastating game. But what I think was really strange is how the people behaved on the pitch. We had the famous or infamous spitting accident. Then we
Yes.
had one guy, actually, he was so angry, he just kicked the ball into his opponents. He looked like he just wanted to actually get one of his opponents in the face or on the body. It was like, you really felt like watching players, some hobby players on the weekend actually, were totally fucked up guys who are angry and don't want to be here. I think this is strange. This is so strange because all of these guys are professionals.
Yes, and
Yeah.
the whole situation with Schalke is just a disaster and misery, because look how giant this club is. I think it's they have 160,000 members. They are the second biggest club in Germany, and one of the biggest clubs in the whole world member-wise. I think they have more members than Real Madrid, than Barcelona, than Chelsea altogether.
Hunter, it's about members, not about fan clubs and fans, right? Yeah, you're definitely right about that. Can we shortly go back to the spitting accident? Can someone tell more about that?
Just the situation with the player of Schalke, Kabak, and the player from Bremen. We are laying on the ground, we are rolling around, and Kabak just, you can see in the TV when they are zooming at his eyes that he's focusing on the player laying on the ground and just spitted on the player.
Yeah, but actually he fouled him first. So he was the guy who fouled him and then he spat on him, which is
Yes.
totally gruesome. I don't know what happened afterwards. Got he fined for that? And only because of being so rude, or also because of the Corona guidelines?
No,
Does anyone of you know
think
about that?
It's a very bad behavior, and he will get a big fee, and I think he will get.
Yeah, but I think it's like with the Leistner accident we had, that actually at the moment, the Football Association does not only have to look out for rude behavior and rule breaches, but also looking out for corona guidelines and how they are enforced. And spitting is like, I think, the
But
craziest thing.
that's just a red card. That's just not a behavior you show on the pitch. That's
Yeah, but I
more
think
than Corona. That's more than Corona. It's just a fucking bad behavior.
Yeah, but I would, for me personally, I think the Corona thing should be emphasized. Spitting during Corona times, you're fortunate to play your sport, and then doing stuff like that, it's crazy.
Yes, I think if your Leistner guy gets like 4 games ban, I think Kabak will get 10 games or so. So it will be a really heavy ban.
Yeah, let's see what happens here.
So now that we've gone over the game day and we've gone over Schalke, who the hell is Schalke? All right, so let's get into the culture and history of Schalke as a club. So Schalke was founded in May 4th, 1904 as Westphalia Schalke. And it's actually interesting. They were founded by a group of high school kids.
Yeah, and it's actually a really romantic story because as high school kids, they did not have any money. So where they started playing actually, when they had no money for a place to play and at sometimes not even money for an actual ball, was at an old ruined mansion. And there was a small meadow in front of the mansion and they played there. Think about that. Sounds like the start of a beautiful Gothic novel meets soccer history. Some young guys playing in front of an old ruined mansion and wanting to be ball players. And they were called a wild club because they were just drinking proletarians actually in the beginning. And the soccer association was more like the bourgeois thing, and they didn't want Westphalia Schalke in the beginning.
Yeah, so they tried all the way till 1912, and then finally they just merged into Schalke Turnverein. Oh, I'm going to try to say it in German. 1877, 1877.
Yes.
Really good.
That way they can kind of use them to get into the Westdeutsche Spielverband, which is the Western German Football Association, which was at that time in 1912 like the big football association in Germany.
And I think we could also mention that Schalke as itself is a district of the town Gelsenkirchen. The funny thing is, if you mention the actual city, the town Gelsenkirchen, anywhere in the world, nobody have ever listened about it, heard something about it. But if you mention Schalke, which is only a small district, then everybody, at least in the soccer world, says, okay, I know them.
And Germany is known as a mining community. So with everything I said beforehand, with the old mansion, the young guys drinking, kicking a ball in front of that ruined mansion, you always have to imagine like the reek of coal in the air. So it's like straight out from a Dickens novel, right?
It's the soul. The mining is the soul of the club, I think, and it kind of emerged from the mining sites.
Yeah, so it's real working class roots, and I think this is important because still today, and we will cover that today, it's not a working class team anymore, but it's like a huge franchise. But I think the magic in the beginning was that players and fans alike shared the same kind of life. They were all from that mining community. They were all blue-collar workers.
And a fun fact which relates to the mining background, to the mining history, is that they are highly connected to Poland, because a lot of mining workers came from Poland, and that's the reason why the big players or some of the big players, some of the legends of Schalke are not named like Maya, Müller or something, sondern they have names like Kutsora, Abramczyk, Libuda, etc., etc.
So
As you mentioned, Kutsora, he, I think, is one of the huge stars of Schalke. He and his, I think it even became his brother-in-law, Fritz Cheppan. I don't know how to pronounce him right. They actually like perfectioned the Scottish low pass. So beforehand, players, when they had a ball, they just shot straight onto the field as far as they could. Now they started to actually do short, low passes to a better position player. I think
they invented Guardiola style.
Yeah, but back in the days, the Scotsman started that way. Then it was perfected in Schalke, and still until this day, people think of that evolution in German Bundesliga as starting and originating at Schalke. So I think that is something really special if you can say my club actually coined the way we play today.
yeah, so in 1915 they tried to separate from Schalke ten Verein 1877. Lasted till 1919 when the two clubs came together. In 1923, the club started to become known as champions when they won the Schalke Kreisliga, which is the Schalke District League. And this little fun fact, this is when they get their nickname, the Knappen, which is apparently an old German word for minors.
Yes, it is.
Side note, I think we're all using the same source.
And they call them even today, the Knappen.
I think what you definitely should mention if you talk about the 1920s and 1930s, there was another special thing that soccer culture-wise, I think, is really important because the first team, every player was from Schalke. So they had a saying that no player lives further away than a 30-cent drive by streetcar from the stadium. So think about that. I think this is really outstanding. And this further emphasizes this idea of we are all in the same boat together. We are all working class. We're all living and working here, breathing the same cold air and playing and cheering on the same fucking field.
Well, yeah, that's why they were called Die Knappen or the miners, because all the supporters and the players were miners. They were actually coal miners. So the players would come out of the coal mines, train, and then play games.
Yeah, and actually, soccer back in these days was still kind of a nice thing to do for the upper classes. So always when like the working class teams won, then this felt like a small victory in a class war. So some people really say back in these days, soccer was kind of a class war on the pitch, right?
And these days, Schalke won a lot of these class wars. So it was kind of during the Nazi time here in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
It was from 33 until 42, which was the most successful time for Schalke. So they won 7 championships, 7 titles, and 7 German soccer titles during the time from 33 to 42.
What's even more crazier than that, out of the 11 seasons, they only lost 6 games, and all of them were away games.
It's amazing.
Actually, when I hear something like that, I want to be part of the team. I always laugh if your team isn't that successful at the moment, but you can like say, oh, back in the days, in the 30s, we were not even born. Like, and the same with bands standing in the back. No, they were better back in 1970, not born. Nevertheless, Simon, you mentioned the Nazi times. And yeah, there is also a big myth around Adolf Hitler being a huge Schalke fan, because actually the whole Schalke identity was just too good to not be used for Nazi propaganda, because you have this small working class person that actually competes on the field for the whole, for your team, for your country, and then wins. So this triumph from worker for the folk, for the community, was something that Hitler really used, and all the players of Schalke, they always said they're politically neutral. But of course, we also know about some stuff that, of course, there was like in the ministry, a special ministry for soccer during that time. And one of the Schalke players actually was part of that ministry. And also some Schalke players got some huge storehouses granted as they were taken away from Jewish people. But I don't think that this is something specifically Schalke related. This have been these terrible times. But what is nice to say that nowadays, actually at the 100th birthday of the club, they actually said they want to research the relationship between Schalke, the club, and to nationalism during the Second World War, and then actually reveal all their findings to the fans and to the public, so they actually work with the past. And I think this is always a good thing, because in Germany we have these terrible times in our past, and it's always important to actually not just be silent about it because it's a terrible, but to talk about it and research stuff and talk to people and remember.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, but
And speaking about that, so happier news, in 1963, with the foundation of the Bundesliga in 1962, they were accepted to the Bundesliga.
and here I want to mention a thing. Do you remember how I made fun that Bayern was not accepted? Even if they were good back then, but they did not have enough sports tradition. It's the other way around to Schalke. They weren't that good in 1962, but because of their huge tradition, they became part of the founding members. So if you're in for success, Bayern; if you're for tradition, Schalke.
So I think if we are talking about success, we have to skip at least 30 years until 1997, when they won the UEFA Cup, which was the biggest victory, the biggest win in the whole history of Schalke 04.
Yeah, I think it's crazy that they've won the UEFA Cup but haven't won the Bundesliga. Closest they've gotten to winning the Bundesliga was in 2000 to 2001 season, when they finished second. And it's crazy because it just kind of like the game that made me fall in love with Bayern. It came down to the final match day, and in the 4th minute of overtime, a Bayern Munich player scored against Hamburg, which ended up with Schalke ending in second and Bayern Munich winning.
Yes, I can
That
remember
is
the day like it was yesterday.
Yeah, that's the closest they've ever gotten to winning the league.
And I think they never really recovered from that shock of losing the championship so close to the. They were already on the field, on the pitch, celebrating and shouting, and they thought they won the title, but they didn't. So beside the facts, I think we can, Stefan, as a Catholic religion teacher, you may want to say something about this special part of Schalke.
Yeah, the special thing about Schalke and religion actually is that it's one of the few clubs and one of the few stadiums in the whole world that actually has a chapel in it. It's like if you prolong the midline in field, you actually will find a chapel. And the chapel, of course, should be like a counterpoint to all the hustle and bustle on the field. People should like have a short minute of silence in there and ponder about life's questions and stuff like that. And there is even more to Schalke being religious, because Pope John Paul II, he is an honorary member of Schalke, believe it or not. He toured Germany, and he like celebrated mass in front of 100,000 people in the stadium. It was a 3-hour mass, and people just in between stood up and actually applauded. So people were crazy for him, and he was crazy for the people too, because he wanted to be there in the first place, because he heard about the great atmosphere in German Bundesliga stadiums. And yeah, so it happened that just a few days after he left, they sent him like a nice document that he's now an honorary member of Schalke 04. And what better thing to have than to have a pope on your side? funny note with that, Pope Francis, the current Pope, actually also is an honorary member of a German soccer team, München 1860, but we'll talk more about that strange trivia fact at another point. But religion aside, how did Schalke become that rich? I think with Allianz Arena of Bayern München, the Schalke Stadium is one of the most famous ones in Germany. And I think the one sponsor everybody knows is the Russia-based hydrocarbon giant Gazprom. Gazprom actually is like sponsoring a lot of soccer teams. And I think it's like Chinese electronics company sponsoring them too. Hisense, I don't know how to pronounce them. And of course, they're also smaller investors. But I read that the Forbes magazine, Simon, you as a lawyer and more into economic stuff, I think you know the Forbes magazine. They always put
Yes.
out like lists, who is richest and stuff like that. And they listed Schalke as the 12th richest football club in the whole world.
But that cannot be an actual fact like today, because
It was made 2014.
because right now we were talking about that they had to send out players on loan and get them back because they couldn't afford new players.
Yeah, but if
So
they
it
were
was-
12th richest in 2014, where did the money
But
end
they-
up the last
They
6 years?
just fucked up. They never really got to Champions League, and they weren't that successful. So what I've heard that there are Schalke fans who quit wearing the Schalke jerseys because of the new sponsor, because of Gazprom, because disagree with the politics of Gazprom, with the Russian politics, and so they just stopped wearing the Schalke jerseys.
Really? I did not hear about that.
Yes.
That's a nice fact. I, as a movie buff, I have another nice trivia thing to add. I think German, as we all know, Hollywood movies and the US is producing better movies than we do, but there are like 5 German movies everybody knows. One of them is Das Boot, a really old
The boat.
movie about a war submarine. And just as a side note, there is one guy in the submarine that is bringing the news that Schalke lost 5-0, which is just a side note, like, hey, we're getting news from over the surface from land, which I think is funny because everybody knows das Boot. So just shortly about the badge, because I'm sure some of you thought about that. The badge of Schalke 04 is like a blue and white circle with the S and the 04. Of course, this is for the name. But then if you look closely, you will see the shapes of a G in there. This is not of them being Masons. This is because of the G standing for Gelsenkirchen, the city the place is located in. But also, if you have a closer look, you recognize a stylized mine mallet. So this also is a reference to the working class mining days. And I think this is really fun to see, because at first looks, it's just some letters, random, nothing special. But at a closer look, there is a lot hidden inside the badge.
Yeah, and
Right.
it's actually pretty cool looking. I like the way it looks, where it's like a
And
bunch of
course, the
letters in
color.
one, but it fits.
Yeah, and of course the color in German, they have the nickname Die Königsblauen, the royal blue ones, which also I think is really cool and a good looking color, right?
But yeah, since then, they actually had a little bit more success in the mid 2000s, finishing second a couple times. But over the past 2 to 3 seasons, I have not seen it. They're lacking, and now you have the crisis going on where they just fired their coach, hired a new one.
So to summarize Schalke, this is the team for you if you're a working class person, if you're like in the co-business, if you want a team that started out with hiring locals, with being one of the underdogs, and ended up being rich, sometimes successful, but never on top, but nevertheless always close to being one of the big ones.
But all right, everybody, I think that's our episode for you today. Stay tuned for our match day 3 coverage and the interview coming up. And don't forget to like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And more importantly, follow us on every place. And of course, we're grateful for every 5-star review on Apple Podcast, for every download. And of course, if you follow us on the streaming platform you actually listen to podcasts to.
We will see you guys next time on 16 States of Soccer.